Good evening, friends. Let us be still for a moment. What if the two simplest words in Scripture, I am, are not a title for a person long ago, but a living doorway in you right now? What happens when those words stop being a belief and become your direct experience? When I am shifts from a name you admire to the presence you are. In that holy recognition, fear loosens, striving quiets, and life begins to unfold as grace rather than effort. Tonight, we're not adding truth, we're uncovering it. We'll sit in the quiet where the personal me falls silent and the unborrowed I, pure being, announces itself. And as this becomes clear, prayer becomes beholding, supply becomes effortless, and love ceases to be an emotion and reveals itself as the way reality functions. If this resonates with you, support this work, like the video, subscribe, and comment 111 below to affirm oneness. Stay with me, because in a few breaths, we'll try a simple turning that lets you feel the difference between saying, I am, about yourself, and hearing, I am. Speak as yourself. Can you sense that threshold already? Let your attention rest on the bare sense of being. No adjectives, no history, just the simple fact that you are. Notice how quickly the mind tries to add a label. I am this, I am that. Gently set those labels aside. Let I am stand without a surname. When it stands alone, it stops pointing to a person and begins to reveal presence, self-existent, unborrowed, impersonal. This is not the me you manage. It is the life that is managing you. It is not the character in your story. It is the light by which the story appears. When Jesus used the words, I am, he was not decorating a personal ego with sacred language. He was disclosing a principle that precedes all persons. Before Abraham was I am. That which is before all names cannot be a name. It is being itself. Think of electricity. It animates a lamp, a heater, a phone. Well, yet it belongs to none of them. The devices vary, but the current is one. In the same way, bodies, temperaments, and biographies differ, but the animating presence is single, indivisible, and free of personal claim. To recognize I am as presence is to release the subtle theft by which the ego tries to own God. This is why the sacred name is so powerful when left uncluttered. Add a predicate, I am strong, I am spiritual, I am successful, and you're back to personality polishing itself. Leave it pure, I am, and you are acknowledging the source that needs no help, the reality that is already whole. The impersonal does not mean cold or distant. It means unbiased, unpossessive, universally present. It shines as the same calm center in a child and a sage, in a busy marketplace and a quiet chapel. Because it is not mine, it cannot be threatened. Because it is not yours, it cannot be withheld. It simply is as light is. Try this in real time. Feel the sense of I, without reaching for a description. Where is it located? Can you find an edge to it? The body has edges, thoughts come and go, emotions rise and fall. But this awareness that knows them, does it move, does it age? That silent is-ness is what the name I am points toward. You don't create it by repeating words, you recognize it by becoming still enough to notice what has been true all along. In that recognition, the personal self relaxes its grip and the presence begins to live itself, as you, effortless, unhurried, precise. From here, spiritual practice changes texture. Prayer ceases to be a request from a person to a distant deity. It becomes beholding, letting I am announce itself where you had imagined lack, friction, or fear. You stop trying to make appearances behave and start witnessing the one behind appearances. The result is not self-improvement but self-disclosure. Relationships soften because there is less me to defend. Work clarifies because there is less me to promote. Guidance becomes natural because the same presence that breathes you also arranges right action without strain. Consider the ocean and the wave. The wave says, I am small, I am large, I am rising, I am breaking. The ocean says only, I am. When the wave forgets its adjectives, it feels the depth beneath it. When you release your adjectives, you feel the depth beneath you. And in that depth, The meaning of Jesus' words shifts from admiration at a distance to immediacy within, where the name does not describe a special person but discloses the one life that is being all here, now, quietly, unassumingly, irresistibly. And as you yield the personal claim, it becomes natural to listen rather than insist, to witness rather than manage, to let the impersonal presence move as wisdom, compassion, and order through every facet of your day, inviting you to pause again and see if the simple I am is shining just as clearly in this very breath, in this very awareness, in this unadorned now, ready to be noticed the moment you stop adding anything to it and simply let it be what it already is, the wordless center of your being self, revealing whenever you consent to be still and let the emphasis shift from I am this to I am unqualified, unobstructed, unnowned, quietly luminous, entirely sufficient, drawing you deeper into its hush so you can hear what you have been speaking all along without knowing it, and let that recognition soften the edges of everything you touch, everything you see, everything you are poised to say next, as the name begins to carry you rather than you carrying the name, and the distinction between your awareness and the presence that is aware gently dissolves into a single, simple, living fact that asks for nothing but your noticing and your willingness to rest as it, just for a moment more, just for this breath, just here, just now, as we continue. From here, notice how the mind wants to turn this discovery into a method, a timetable, a ladder to climb. That is belief at work, sincere, energetic, and forever preparing to arrive. Belief says, if I practice enough, think rightly enough, pray fervently enough, I will get there. Realization gently removes the there. It reveals that what is sought is the very awareness that is seeking. Belief belongs to thought. Realization belongs to being. Belief adds, realization subtracts. Belief collects concepts about God. Realization exposes the presence that is before every concept, inside every breath, underneath every word. Seeking then ripens toward a holy fatigue, not cynicism, but the moment when the heart admits it cannot climb into what already is. In that admission, the posture changes from reaching to receiving, from managing to noticing. This is what the mystics called beholding. Beholding is not concentration or visualization. It is the consent to let reality announce itself without the interference of a personal agenda. You are not trying to pull God into a situation. You are letting the situation be seen within God. You open your hands inwardly and the grasping falls away. In that opening, the fact of I am becomes felt rather than thought. Try it when a fear appears. The old reflex is to argue with the fear, to import affirmations, to fix the picture. Instead, pause and let attention sink back into the bare is-ness you tasted. Do not push the fear out, include it in awareness, and look past it as you would a veil. Behold, meaning, let presence be all that is here and watch. Often nothing dramatic happens in the moment. The phone still rings, the bill still sits on the table, the diagnosis still says what it says. Yet the charge changes, the inner insistence loosens. From this quiet, right action, if any, is recognized rather than invented. The next step rises of itself, and it is curiously free of tension. This is why realization is restful. It does not make you passive, it makes you precise. You stop spending energy persuading appearances to obey, and you give attention to the one fact that never moves. From that still point, supply shows up as sufficiency for this moment, not as hoarding for a future. Health shows up as order asserting itself, not as a battle of powers. Relationships show up as shared presence, not as negotiations between separate selves. You find yourself less interested in outcomes and more surrendered to the integrity with which life is unfolding. And paradoxically, what outcomes improve because fear is no longer steering. Belief constantly checks its pulse. Am I advancing? Do I feel spiritual enough? Beholding has no yardstick. It notices when the mind is measuring and returns to silence without commentary. Some days the felt sense of presence is vivid, some days it is subtle. Both are fine. The practice, if we call it that, is simply remembering to stop, to listen inwardly, to let I am be I am without attaching a predicate or a plan. Over time, the intervals of forgetting shorten and the baseline of peace rises, not by effort but by recognition. In this way, seeking fulfills itself by dissolving. The seeker relaxes back into the seeing, and what remains is an unhurried gaze that blesses by the fact of its transparency. You are not trying to radiate anything. What the radiance belongs to the presence, and it knows how to move through you without your instruction, until the sense of a separate seeker thins, and the awareness that beholds is felt as the very life that you are, intimate, immediate, quietly authoritative, and nearer than thought, nearer than thought. The word, Christ, names the living center of identity, not a distant figure to adore, nor a moral achievement to earn, but the very presence of God as the I, that knows itself. It is the light in the eye, the sap in the branch, the current in the wire. Personal traits, histories, and roles are like garments. The Christ is the life that wears them without being confined by them. You do not become the Christ. The Christ is what remains when the borrowed names loosen and the impersonal I am is allowed to stand clear. This is why the Christ is never mine or yours. It does not localize to a personality any more than sunlight belongs to a single window. Jesus revealed this not as exclusivity, but as demonstration, a transparency through which the Father within could be seen. Whenever the sense of a separate self quiets, that same light shines, without announcement, without superiority, simply as the natural atmosphere of consciousness. The hallmark is not spectacle but simplicity, a peace that is native rather than manufactured, a love that requires no project, a wisdom that arrives without strain. Try noticing the felt sense of again, and look for the one who claims it. You will not find an owner, only awareness aware of itself. That unfindable center is the Christ, not an object in consciousness, but the very fact of consciousness. When identity shifts here, the old pendulum between guilt and pride loses momentum. You are no longer the doer anxiously polishing a spiritual resume. You are the transparency through which God's own nature shows up as kindness, right action, clarity, and quiet authority. The tone of life changes from performance to presence. The Christ is practical. Faced with a need, it does not scramble for a remedy. It beholds completeness and lets form catch up. Faced with a conflict, it does not take sides. It sees through the picture of separation and answers from wholeness. Faced with illness, it does not battle a power called disease. It yields to the order of being that knows how to assert itself. None of this is personal magic. It is the activity of truth in awareness, like warmth appearing wherever the sun is unobstructed. Your part is not to make light, but to remove the shades of fear and self-importance. Notice, too, how the Christ dissolves specialness without erasing uniqueness. The ray is not the sun, yet nothing of the sun is absent in the ray. So your gifts, temperament, and work become instruments, not identities. The music matters, not the instruments boasting. In this way, humility and confidence meet humility because nothing originates in the person, confidence because nothing is lacking in the presence. You can move in the world as a clear window, nobody special, yet nothing missing. In the silence, you may sense the Christ as a subtle warmth, a pressureless certainty, or simply a spacious okayness that does not depend on outcomes. Stay with that, not to produce effects but to bear witness. The Christ recognizes only what God is being. It does not consult appearances for permission to be at peace. Let the pronoun I soften until it means this presence alone, and let every role, conversation, and task be carried in that recognition, so that what speaks, listens, touches, decides, and creates is the same I that is before adjectives, the same I that quietly fulfills its own nature. Wherever it is welcomed from this recognition, the sense of power changes. You stop negotiating with forms and begin resting in source. No power means exactly this. Effects have no authority of their own. A symptom, a bank balance, a lawsuit, a headline, these are appearances, not causes. 'cause is invisible, simple, singular the presence that is being all. When you identify with the Christ within, you do not grant a second power to anything outside that presence. You neither fear appearances nor try to overpower them. You see through them to the one that alone is operative, and in that seeing their seeming leverage dissolves. Consider supply. Money is not supply, it is a symbol. Jobs, clients, markets are channels. The well is not the rain, it is where water happens to appear. Supply is the life of God expressing as sufficiency in this moment. When you take money as power, you bow to an idol and inherit its anxieties. When you acknowledge source as the only cause, you become available to fresh channels without clinging to old ones. Gratitude then attaches not to amounts but to presence, and forms rearrange to mirror that inner alignment. You may still budget, plan, and work, but without the strain of believing that paper or pixels feed you. You eat of the bread that comes from within and shows up as right ideas, right timing, right relationships. Consider safety. Locks, alarms, insurance, and strategies have their place, but they are not your security. The one life is. When awareness abides as I am, you are not a vulnerable person trying to fend off a universe of threats. You are the transparency of a presence that has no opposite. This does not make you reckless. It makes you unafraid. You take ordinary precautions as wisdom directs, yet you refuse to install fear as a second god. In that refusal, you find yourself in right place at right time, guided away from entanglements, hearing inner cautions as clearly as inner permissions, carried by an order larger than your plans. Consider health. Organs and chemistry are instruments, not powers. Disease is not an entity with law. It is a picture claiming law. The presence that breathes you is the order that maintains you. When symptoms arise, do not wage war with them as though they were armed. Return to the quiet recognition that being is whole and indivisible. You may consult a practitioner, take medicine, or rest. Let wisdom choose the form, but keep your reliance on source. The peace you hold is not stoic denial. It is alignment with the one harmony that corrects without conflict. Often clarity comes first, the fear charge drops, the nervous system unwinds, and in that relaxed field, the needed adjustments occur with far less resistance. How is this practiced? By refusing to confer causative status on anything you can name or touch. Pause and look through the surface to the unseen fact. When a problem shouts, do not shout back, behold. When a solution tempts you to idolize it, thank it and look past it to the giver. Watch for subtler idolatries, the hope that a technique, a mantra, or a teacher will become your power. Let prayer be a returning to the center where no rival stands, a listening until you feel the quiet certainty that the one is being itself here, and then act from that certainty, doing the next simple thing without strain. Letting results belong to the same presence that authored the impulse to move from that same center. Silence reveals itself as the most honest prayer, not words reaching upward, but awareness resting as what is already here. It is not a vacant hush, it is vivid, awake, unobstructed. In this silence the urge to persuade God fades, because presence needs no persuading. You are not arranging reality, you are consenting to reality. The prayer is the posture itself, open, ungrasping, receptive, and in that posture the name I am is heard without syllables, as a living fact rather than an idea. Let the body be at ease, the breath unforced, the mind allowed to slow without scolding. If thoughts come, let them pass like birds across a wide sky. If emotions rise, let them be held in the same spaciousness. The point is not to muzzle the mind, but to shift allegiance from the stream of content to the awareness that knows the stream. This is contemplative listening. You do not aim at outcomes, you abide in source and allow outcomes to take their shape. Some days the silence is tender and warm, some days it is cool and still. Both are the same prayer, because both are the same presence recognized. Carry this silence into activity. Before you pick up the phone, pause until you feel the inner floor under your feet. Before you send the email, let the last bit of hurry drain out. While someone speaks, Listen beyond their words to the life speaking them. This is not technique so much as fidelity, keeping your attention aligned with the one that is doing the seeing and hearing. In this way, prayer stops being a segment of your day and becomes the way your day breathes. You find that the best words arrive from quiet, the cleanest decisions rise after the pause, and the unnecessary movements fall away without struggle. Awareness then becomes action. Not passivity, not withdrawal, but movement born from clarity rather than from fear or vanity. You notice the impulse that carries the feel of rightness. Simple, unforced, timely, and you follow it. Sometimes action is swift, sometimes it is a calm wait, sometimes it is a gentle no. Each is action because each expresses alignment. In a tense meeting, awareness may nudge you to ask one honest question instead of delivering a speech, and the atmosphere shifts. In traffic, awareness may slow your pace without a reason your mind can supply, and a hazard is quietly avoided. With a loved one, awareness may choose silence and presence over correction, and misunderstanding loosens without debate. This way of moving is efficient because it wastes nothing. You are not compensating for inner noise, you are allowing the work to be done by the same presence that guides birds to their migratory paths and sap to its springtime rise. The result is not lethargy but precision, fewer reversals, fewer apologies, fewer repairs. Creativity opens because space has been made for it. Solutions appear that thinking could not assemble. You recognize that the real doing is the seeing. The seen action is its natural echo. Let ordinary tasks become altar space. Washing dishes, answering messages, writing code, tending a child. Let each be carried in the same silence that prays. Put down what isn't needed. Pick up what is. Dwell in the middle as witness and instrument. If you lose the thread and hurry takes over, stop for 10 seconds and begin again. The pause is not avoidance, it is calibration. You are choosing clarity over speed, integrity over momentum, inner yes over outer pressure, until the line between prayer and performance disappears and your day proceeds as a single act of listening that speaks, a single awareness that moves without strain to keep it so. Let the day be strung on simple pauses, brief doorways through which you step back into the center before moving on. The pause is not an interruption, it is the axis. Turn within for one honest breath, listen for the quiet tone of presence, and abide there for a moment longer than habit would allow. That extra moment is where momentum gives way to clarity, where reaction yields to response. You are not trying to feel a certain way, you are consenting to be aware of the awareness that is already steady, already whole, already free of hurry. Make the pause small and frequent. Before speaking, let one inhale clear a space. Before touching a handle, a keyboard, a steering wheel, remember the inner floor and stand on it. After finishing a task, do not rush to the next. Give 3 seconds to feel the simplicity of I am unadorned. Use ordinary cues, doorways, phone vibrations, the red light, the kettle's hiss, as bells of mindfulness. Each bell says the same thing: return, not to a thought, but to the felt fact of being. Over time, these tiny turnings lace the day with quiet continuity, and the sense of separation loses its grip not by argument, but by absence of attention. Listening in the pause is different from analyzing. You are not hunting for a message. You are letting attention widen until it includes the subtle hum that is always present. Sometimes guidance appears as a wordless yes or no, a relaxation or a tightening, a simple readiness to move or wait. Trust the simplicity. If nothing particular is heard, the pause has already done its work. It has re-centered you in the impersonal I. What action from there tends to be clean even without a headline insight. The measure of a true pause is the absence of strain and the presence of sufficiency for the next step. No more and no less. A bedding begins as a pause and deepens as a dwelling. Set aside a few unhurried spaces each day where you do not aim, improve, or perform, where you sit, walk, or lie down and let the awareness be aware of itself. Let the breath come and go without management. Let thoughts bloom and fade without gardening. If restlessness appears, include it. If sleepiness arrives, notice it kindly. The temptation will be to use the time to get somewhere. Gently refuse. Abiding is not a project. It is fidelity to what you discovered in the shorter pauses, a lingering that allows depth to reveal itself without your supervision. Expect forgetting and welcome returning. The mind will rush, the calendar will spill, the body will tighten, and you'll find yourself 10 miles outside the center before you notice. Do not scold, smile inwardly, and step back. The speed with which you return matters more than the length of the detour. A whispered "here," a soft inner glance toward "I am," and the thread is picked up again. Over weeks and months, this rhythm, lose, notice, return, conditions the nervous system to trust stillness and to stop equating vigilance with tension. What productivity with pressure, spirituality with performance bring the pause into difficulty. When criticized, pause to feel the ground before answering. When anxiety spikes, pause to let the body register safety in the present chair, the present room, the present breath. When confronted with a decision, pause until an action feels honest rather than strategic. When someone you love is suffering, pause to behold them in the same presence you trust for yourself, and let what is kind arise without managing their picture. The pause does not postpone life, it allows life to speak in its native voice, which is often quieter than the world's volume. At the end of the day, bookend the hours with 2 simple acknowledgements upon waking. A first pause before the mind tells you who you are before sleep. A last pause in which you hand the day back to the one who lived it as you. These bookends do not sanctify special minutes, they tune your sense of identity so that the minutes between are less likely to be spent in forgetfulness. In this way, the pause becomes not only something you practice, but the atmosphere you live in, the natural home to which attention returns again and again until returning is no longer necessary, because you have recognized you never truly left.